Hello, Jennifer. Thank you for being here. And my first question for you is briefly explain what your current position is in the industry and why did you choose that role?
Hey, Adriana, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm really looking forward to telling you more about my role in finance and some of the experiences I've learned along the way. And so, thank you so much. My name is Jennifer Chan. I'm a senior director at a medical device company. I'm currently the senior director of Treasury Capital Markets. And so, what I do is I lead a corporate treasury team, which means I help the company manage things like debt, investments, and currency risk. So what that means is debt is the company can be borrowing money if it needs some funding. Investments, if there's excess cash that's not being used by operations, what do we do with it? How do we invest it? And then lastly, currency risk. So we collect sales and profits from all different countries because we're a global medical device company. And so how do we ensure that the swings in the volatility of the currency markets doesn't impact the value of our cash and our financial results? So that's what I do. I chose this role because it's all about making smart decisions, and that helps manage the company's money and really allow the money to be safely invested and to mitigate any foreign exchange risk. And that also helps and protects the cash so that the company can use it to continue to grow. And so managing, investing in new acquisition targets or investing in new technologies, things like that. So I love that what I do every day is not the same. So financial markets are always changing, and then we do need to also prioritize what the company's priorities are over, and those change over time as well. So that's a little bit about myself and the role that I'm currently in and why I like it so much.
That's awesome. That sounds like you do a lot of working with assets and making sure that your company's funds are being directed and used most efficiently. So that's great to hear. And my second question for you is, how did you get to your position where you are today? Like what education, what degrees, any internships?
Yeah, so in my position today, um, I started out with a really good background in finance and accounting in college. So I majored in economics, but I made sure I took the right accounting classes, finance classes, so that I could be really skilled in some of those areas. And so what I really wanted to make sure too was that I had a good, solid start to my career. So I wanted to work for a big four accounting firm where I could get access to many different companies in many different industries. So when I started at a big four accounting firm, I was in the Silicon Valley. So I got a lot of experience with working with companies like tech companies, also healthcare companies and financial companies. So all sorts of different companies of all different sizes. So that gives you a lot of varied experience, which is helpful for you to kind of understand how things work in smaller companies, bigger companies, and kind of thinking about what their strategies are and what they're most focused on. So that really helps build your experience from the ground up. And big four firms, you get to work with many different clients. You're not at one company learning just one specific way of doing things. And so after that, I did spend some time there, and then kept taking on bigger projects so that I could learn more. I think experience gives you a lot of learnings, and so don't shy away from the big projects or and things like that. I even learned some tax also that I thought I would never need to use, but I actually still leverage that material today in my current role, even though I'm not in tax. And so after that, I decided I would go check out what it would be like in a corporation instead of at a big four or a consulting company. And so I was at a biotech company, and that's where I started out as an accountant. I learned how to use systems and tools. And then I had the opportunity to rotate into a treasury position. And so a lot of big companies and smaller companies will have a way for analysts or employees and team members to rotate across the organization so they get a taste of a different area within finance or accounting or even something completely different. So that was a great opportunity for me to rotate into treasury. And so that's how I became, I learned on the job. It's a lot of on the job experience too. What I will say though is that during this time, I did spend my free time while I was at work, working. I enrolled in the CFA program because I wanted to deepen my technical knowledge and position myself for leadership roles in finance. So the CFA charter is one of the most respected credentials within the finance industry, and so it aligns well with the role that I wanted to continue on, which is treasury.
Yeah. And just quickly, for those who aren't familiar with the term of CFA, may you clarify what that means?
Yeah, so it stands for the Chartered Financial Analyst Program, and so it's a rigorous credential. So it's comprised of three separate tests, exams, and each of them are a 6 hour long test that you have to sit for. And so it goes through basically all your finance theories. How do you invest, and how should you manage an investment portfolio? So there's three levels. So the first level is all about your basic finance and accounting um, knowledge, so that you can learn how to investigate and research and evaluate investments of certain companies. And then the second one is more a little bit more detailed. And then the third one is really about how you manage investments. So
Mm.
it will go through everything you'll ever want to know about finance. So if you didn't take enough courses in college, or you're trying to move from one major to another, or you have a background in engineering and you want to do something finance, want to get a finance job, great way to do that, switch careers, is to take this CFA charter exam.
So the CFA charter exam strengthens your credibility when applying for jobs and
It
just your
does.
knowledge.
Yeah, you have to have that on your resume. It really signals that you do know finance, and it's very difficult to pass, and so it just shows that you have accomplished a lot on your free time too, to get there. So it's kind of like a CPA, but it's more for finance professionals
More
doing.
zoomed in, honed in. Yeah. All right, thank you. It seems like you put a lot of time and effort to getting that CFA, which has helped prepare you for where you are today. And my third question for you is describe some challenges in your journey and how you overcame them.
Yeah, so I think several times within my journey to get to ultimately where I am is really proving to the people who are trying to hire you that you have the relevant skills and experience to be able to do that job. And so when I was moving from accounting to treasury, even though it might not sound like it because we're talking about really high level finance jobs,
Hmm.
there's accounting is very specific, treasury is very specific, and there's very specific skill sets involved with both of those. And so having no prior experience in treasury before, it was actually quite a challenge to prove myself to the next department in order to get the role that I wanted in treasury. And so I had to, really prove that I was enthusiastic and I was really passionate about it, because I think that goes a long way. It means, you will really do a good job because you're going to invest the time to do a good job. And also, it was about translating your prior experience and how that actually translates to what the new department does. And even though they're not the same, how are those skills relevant and still supportive of what they're doing? And
Yeah.
so, you know, being polite and asking about the status of my application and continue to express interest in the role, even a lot of time had passed by, really helped. And then ultimately, by being persistent, I did get the role that I wanted within the company where I made this switch from accounting to treasury.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So that's some great advice that you have to just keep persevering. And I have into my next question. It's what are some more exciting things about working in finance and for you as a treasury? And what goals should someone have who's looking to pursue a career in your field?
Now, that's a great question, Adriana. Thanks for the question. So I think in finance, it's always fast moving, and it's important because you're solving big problems that affect the whole company, and the market's always changing. So one day you have a lot of cash on your company has a lot of cash. What do you do with it? Or your company doesn't have enough cash, but it wants to make investments in X, Y, and Z. What's the best way to do that? So those are big company-wide decisions that you get to help shape. And so, or if it's, you're thinking about a new product for a company to sell, is it worthwhile for that investment? Maybe you need to pay upfront X millions of dollars. Will that provide me with a return that will help boost my share price or the company valuation? So there's a lot of finance professionals that are working closely with marketing strategy to make sure that these things are well covered through analysis. And so I think that's always very exciting.
Yeah, that's really cool. And going back to like the goal setting part, I think you mentioned something about how you took on a lot of projects when you were younger. Did that help with getting your name out there and showing that you were ready for this position?
Yeah, about the goals, I think it is really it's very nice to have internship experience. So whether it's directly related or not, I think one of the internships I had in college was financial advising. So for personal wealth accounts. And in that role, you're still doing a lot of the same, using the same skills as you would for a corporation. For example, you would still do like a discounted cash flows for the person's income to see how much they're worth. And then you kind of would do the same thing for a company, but you're based on the company's generation of cash. So, getting experience through any type of finance role, even though it's not the same exact same one that you want, is still helpful. You'll build the skills and learn how to use tools. And then also your experience gives you better perspective on what you ultimately want to do. For example, you find financial advising for private clients to be really interesting because you like talking to clients. So maybe that helps you inform you that later on you want to deal with a lot of relationships and communication, in which case maybe being part of a relationship manager at an investment bank is what you really want to do. So it really helps you identify what experiences you want and what you want ultimately want your career to look like. And so I wouldn't turn down any internships if you can get them, even though they're not necessarily related to what you think your focus is at the moment. Some other goals, I think, really build a strong foundation for math and problem solving because things are always changing. We need people to be adaptable in finance. It's not just about um, finance and accounting skills, but how to use AI, how to use machine learning, things like that, because that will always be something that you're going to have to keep up with in the field. Also, I think I mentioned earlier, you can demonstrate your expertise in a certain area by getting a CPA or a CFA charter, any type of certification is helpful to really show that you've invested time and you've learned the skills to pass the tests and gain the certifications. And also connections, I think, making sure that you also talk to people and those people will give you more perspectives too on what is helpful for your career and to help you grow in your career.
Yeah, that it's very meaningful to have that networking and to establish those connections and also share like this is why I'm unique and this is why you should hire me. I fit the goals and the objectives. So that was a great answer. Thank you. For my last question, it's sharing any advice that you have for a female student close to my age, like in high school, who is looking to pursue a career in finance, the industry, and finding a mentor who can be a part of the support system. So they kind of go together.
Okay. Yeah, I personally didn't was not as focused in high school as you are, Adriana, and I'm sure some of your listeners on this podcast. So, kudos to you if you're listening to this podcast. So that's the first step is really continue to invest in yourself and find all the resources you can to learn about finance. And so I think part of that is can you find a mentor at this time in your life? who's in a finance field. And I think you can. And part of that is, being enthusiastic and persistent, like I was saying. You could reach out to, your friends and family, or maybe they know somebody that's in the finance field that they could connect you with. Maybe, ask somebody on LinkedIn that you found through, maybe a nearby a local company, that you could go and maybe have a coffee chat with somebody. And I think, there are actually a lot of professional women's networks in finance, and they would love to mentor the next generation of finance leaders. So keep the lookout for those. Maybe if you're not searching for specific companies or people, look for women networks, because I think there would be a lot of women that would be interested in mentoring younger younger students who are interested in the finance field. And also, I would say, don't limit it to women. I think having multiple perspectives, both from female and male mentors, is helpful. Ultimately, they can give you different perspectives that will help you ultimately choose how you go down your finance career path.
Well, you gave great responses today, and thank you. I'm sure that the listeners appreciate getting this knowledge from you and that specific details going into like how you find your relationships and how internships can help you decide what you want to do in the finance field and what's for you. And I'd like to thank you for your time and advice. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Adriana, for having me on this podcast.